Jenny. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to share a card that I created for my sister-in-law for a Aunt's Day card instead of a Mother's Day card. I usually give her a Mother's Day card, but this amazing stamp set from Simon Says Stamp has an ant portion to it, which is perfect. So I thought I would share the creation of it. It starts with this set that is Simon Says Stamp, and it's called Incredible Woman, and it's got these really cool sort of font plays on different letters like mother, mama, mom, aunt, grandma, and then each of the letters sort of has an adjective next to it, which is really a fun set because it reminds me of something that you would do as a kid, but it's a really graphic way that they created the font. Also, I'm going to use this other Simon Says stamp. It's a background stamp called the Floral Mix Background that has a lot of dashed lines and sort of very fine lines of sunflowers, and maybe they look like maybe dahlias or peonies, and some leaves, and they have these dashed lines behind them where it might be sort of the petals behind them or this, sort of shadows, and it's just a really cool stamp. So what I decided I was going to do was to use that large background stamp on a piece of watercolor paper and heat emboss a white, and just a plain white heat emboss on the stamp itself, and then use some distress inks to sort of watercolor over that. And it is from edge to edge because I'm using a 5.5, I think, square piece of watercolor paper from Tonic Studios, or the Craft Perfect brand that they use. And I'm going to cover it with it's Hero Arts Superfine White powder that I have in a large sort of bin like this, or Tupperware, which makes it easier to handle a big area. And I'm going to hold it by some tweezers on one piece of it to be able to heat it easier. And it is kind of hard to see. You can see a little bit there in the light, but I'm going to heat emboss all of it until it gets smooth and all the way heated through. And then that will resist the ink that I'm going to put on after that. I've used this background stamp one other time, and I used it for a more traditional watercolor, but I thought it would be fun to use it like this in a sort of quick, messy method, using some pretty coral kind of pinks distress inks. So I've got some Tattered Rose, Abandoned Coral, and Fossilized Amber, and these are just traditional distress inks in the mini, and I'm going to lay them over my Tonic Easy Clean mat there. I'm going to mist them with the distress ink mister there, and just lay my paper into it. And I just dab a little bit of it up. I'm going to use my heat tool to kind of speed it up a bit. And then I'm going to kind of repeat the process a couple more times, mostly because I wanted a little bit more pink in that. And, you can't see as much of it in the end, but I really did want a little bit more of the pink and a little bit less of the yellow. I have a microfiber towel there that I'm going to use to wipe up a little bit of that. All right, so while that is drying, I'm going to grab the stamp that is from that set, and I'm going to use this ant one. And I had planned to heat emboss it onto a piece of paper and then cut out, using a heart die cut it out of the floral background stamp, so you see this ant stamp behind it, ant stamp. So I used my VersaMark to add the stamp to it, and now I'm going to add another, it's a microfine gold. It's just a plain gold not gold glitter, but just a plain gold embossing powder. And so I'm going to zoom in on it there for you to see me heat it up and get it all smooth. And heat it a little bit on the back too. And then I'm going to add that behind this piece once I cut out the heart from it. And it's one of the Tonic Studios basic dies. And this is a heart from it. And it's I think it's the next to largest size heart. So it's pretty large. I mean, it's maybe a 4-inch heart. So I cut that out, and now this is perfect because I can use that heart for another card, which I'm not showing this, but what I decided to do was to use a piece of fun foam, and I'm going to use the same die to cut out the same size and set that inside of the same place and line it up so I can cut that out using the Gemini Junior as well. That way I can glue that to the background stamped piece and then have it raised up a little bit before you see the heat embossed sentiment or the sort of ant stamp. Okay, so now that I've got that there, I'm going to get that ready to layer and glue to adhere to the stamp piece. And I just trim it down a good bit. The original size is a 5.5 by 5.5, so I just kind of keep trimming this down. The final background stamped piece that I use the distress ink on is the same size. It's a 5.5 by 5.5. So these pieces just kind of get a little bit smaller behind it. So I'm going to layer that on using some Nuvo Deluxe adhesive and weight it down. And now I'm going to use something I normally don't do is to stamp a sentiment inside the card. And I'm going to start trying to do more of this because I think it really adds something to it. Piles of, the stamp sets that we have are made for this. So I thought this would be the perfect place to do it. And it's this teeny tiny little Happy Mother's Day stamp that is part of that set. And I used some Delicata gold ink to stamp it on the inside. And it is a gorgeous ink if you don't have that. It is really beautiful. There's no other gold ink, like a stamp ink, that even comes close to something like a embossed ink. It's beautiful. So I'm going to let that dry there. I'm going to use some more adhesive to adhere that heart like foamed piece to the over that card that has the embossed piece on it. Make sure I've got that little teeny tip. I kind of lifted that up a bit when I was adding those stamp blocks to weight it down. So then I'm going to use some, I couldn't decide whether I was going to use Nuvo drops or some sequins. I decided to use some sequins, and before I do that, I'm going to use some super strong double-sided tape to adhere the face of all of those pieces to my card base. And I normally might use another liquid adhesive, but I really wanted it to stay in place, and so I knew this would work. So I'm going to remove all of those sticky pieces, adhere it to the front of my cardstock. My card base. And then I'm going to add some sequins to the front of it. And inevitably I put it in the wrong place. So I'm going to add that there back to the right place. It's the only problem with using something that is not like a liquid glue, but it all worked out. These are a little sequin mix from Neat and Tangled, and I'm going to use the Smooth Precision pen from Nuvo to add some dots of glue, and then I'm going to just pop a few of these pieces of these sequins on, and they're sort of in a gold, kind of like a white, creamy kind of, pale iridescent white, and a pale pink and this sort of coral color. So I just adhered those in the top left corner and the bottom right corner. I wanted to use Nuvo drops, but I was afraid I was going to get caught up in the details of the flowers, and so I just thought this would be a nice way to add color to it. And that is the final card. Thanks so much for stopping by. I appreciate you hanging out today. I wish all of the mothers of any sort, whether they are kid mothers, grandmothers, aunt mothers, pet mothers, anything that, or just even women in general, perfect day to celebrate women. A happy day, and I hope you have a great week. I'd appreciate any feedback or comments you have, and a subscription if you are not already subscribed, and I will see you next week. Bye!